So, welcome to A Funny Thing Called Business. This is where us four business owners with over 30 years collective experience under our belts share the capers and triumphs of running a small business and how we now avoid perilous customer chaos and pitfalls. So, today we have Clare Whalley,
Darren Langley,
Kate Curry,
Pete Morgan.
Welcome. And today we're sharing all about how you have named your business or how you create a name for your lovely business. So I'm sure we have got some funny stories to share between us. But the first question I'd love to ask you is, what's your favourite unusual or funny story around business names? And you know what, Pete, let's deal with it. I've got to come to the elephant in the room and speak to you first about your lovely business name.
Yeah, so the business is called Monkey Pants Productions, and I mean, it came about. So I used to work for the BBC full time, but I was contracted to the BBC, and they changed the way they did things. They wouldn't sign with sole traders, so you had to form a business, and everyone was forming kind of, John Smith Productions or John Smith Limited or whatever. And I was like, I really don't want that. I really want something. I have this idea in my mind that I am quirky and interesting, and I'm really not. But it was just one of those things of, well, let's just try and make myself quirky and interesting and come up with a different name. So there was all kinds of names thrown around. Ginger Ninja was one of them that was kind of put around at one point, because when I had hair, it was ginger.
Right.
And then what did you think?
Yeah.
And then it was my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, who we were rowing about something, and then we'd kind of cleared the air, and she was saying, "You are such a monkey pants," and it was like, okay, that's it. Because it's it's a bit cheeky and it's quite memorable. So that's kind of how we came up with it. She just never used it before, barely used it since. But so Monkey Pants is what the name has been kind of going forward, and it's always kind of. And it was only the other day I realised that the initials are the same as my initials, but in reverse. So it's MPPM.
Yeah,
exactly.
I love the name Monkey Pants. I just think it's fantastic, and it's almost like I say it now to people without giving it a second thought that it might be, it's underwear for primates.
That's just a sideline.
Like MailChimp, people just say it now, don't they? It's just the company name. But I just love how that just sort of popped into your guys' heads as coming up with a business name. It's superb. Yeah.
I mean, it was a few years ago now. There was probably some very sweary adult-related ones that were like, yeah, we can't have that as the company name. And when we checked it, there isn't anybody at Company's House, but worldwide there is. I think there's a Japanese school uniform manufacturer that's called Monkey Pants,
of course
and there's a shop in California called Monkey Pants. But so.
And what do they sell?
I didn't realise that it had been the name way before you'd had, your current podcast business.
Yeah. So it was. So I'd be talking to my BBC bosses, the editors I'd be working with, and I'm like, okay, but that's not me you're paying. That's Monkey Pants that you're paying. Yeah. And it was only when I kind of left the BBC at the beginning of 2017 that it was like, okay, we've got this business. Let's do something with it. And then, so the podcasting thing was born.
Sharon, do you think we need to talk about how your business was named?
Yeah, I think we should. I definitely think we should.
Let's see how this came about.
Yeah, it's a really interesting story. So it's quite a long story, so make yourself comfortable, right? But obviously my business is called Darren Langley Web Design because my name's Darren Langley and I do web design. So, I just thought it's perfect. It's like a perfect fit. But really, I mean, the backstory was kind of the opposite to Pete's, where I was just like freelancing. So I didn't have another name other than my own name. And then as the business started to grow, then it became a limited company. It's like, what do we call it? Well, just stick. So I'd already got the logo, so stick with the name. And now I've kind of reached that point where it's like, I get confused myself. Who am I talking about here? The company or me? Or, because it is that kind of dilemma, really, when you have a really, micro business or a small business. And do you kind of position yourself with a brand name that makes you sound big and important, but really it's just you? And then does that feel kind of slightly cheeky, and if maybe you win a project that you just can't deliver or you let people down on because you've kind of over-egged the pudding a bit, really? Or the flip side of that is, do you just go with your own name or a small sounding brand name to kind of reflect the fact that you are small and just be, honest about it, I suppose, in a sense. But
so do you ever, when you're talking to clients, do you ever use the we? Do you ever say, yeah, we're going to do this? Or is it always, I'm going to do this?
To be honest, it changes. It depends. It depends on the depends on the
if your alter egos in that day.
Depends how many of us turn up. Yeah.
If you want to take responsibility.
Yeah.
I know that was
Yeah, absolutely.
I've done a bit of research for this. I just having a look around at names and where they've come from, and there are some really interesting stories. But ultimately, I don't think it matters whether you've got your own name or just a random name or a name of any word, as long as, and I know Kate will be able to back me up on this, as long as your brand is really strong and you've got a really clear message, I don't think actually anyone pays attention to the names, and we kind of know that as consumers. We don't think of these brand names. Oh, where's that from? That sounds interesting. We just take it in and digest it and think no more.
But I do think that a brand name, to be kind of more memorable, there is that kind of 3-syllable kind of maximum type rule that gets knocked about, where it's like, if it's kind of Amazon, or if it's Google, or if it's Monkey Pants, it's like 3 syllables. It makes it more memorable, whereas like Darren Langley Web Design is kind of not really going to do it, is it?
Darren Lang.
Mine's a sentence.
You need 2 sides of A4 for your name, don't you, Kate? That's
a paragraph.
Did you spend a lot of time on your business name?
Yeah, I did, and I wish I had a hilarious story about it, but I don't really. I'm the same as everybody else, really, going through that really difficult decision. This is my baby. What do I call it? We're going to live with this for years to come. I'm going to be able to stand up and say it and feel okay saying it. But I set the business up originally with my husband, who does architectural design. And so straight away, that ruled out anything quirky. It couldn't be sort of pink, fluffy robot creative or anything like that. It had to be something that would work for quite a diverse range of different clients and different services. So our surname is Curry, and I was like, do you know what? Let's just capitalise on a slightly quirky name and use that. So we just went with the Curry Design Studio because that was something that could be used for both. But he's since abandoned it, really, and now I've got to live with a name that he's sort of quite the restrictions to it in the first place. But I actually quite like it. I think it is memorable. People do remember it, and I do get the usual jokes like, "Do you make biryanis?" Like,
Sorry, I thought you said usual jokes.
Yeah, Christmas cracker joke. Interesting. Well, mine is Metaphor Business Coach, and I can't even remember now if I started with Metaphor Business Coach, and I think when I rebranded and the lovely Kate helped me, we did change it slightly. But I went into business with someone at the beginning, 2007 was when I started, and it was his idea to have it as Metaphor. And back then I didn't feel I was very creative, so I didn't have a great deal of input in it. I just liked the idea that it was about stories. And coaching is about telling stories and working through your story however you want to. So I like it for that, but I do have to spend a lot of time, metaphor, META, that's the number 4, not PHOR, and I spend a lot of time spelling my name out as well. So the whole thing it involves a lot of spelling all the time, but ultimately, it feels like a strong brand, and I don't think people really pay too much attention to it.
That is one of the things when you have like a number in the name, though, isn't it? It's quite common in sort of web world with domain names where people have, my company's called 33, but it's 3 and then you're 30.
Yeah.
And spelling out, number 3 and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of, can get a bit kind of tricky. But with your name, it took a little while for the penny to drop in, because I always saw it written down, Meta with the number 4. So, that's kind of quirky. And it took quite a long time for me to think, actually, metaphor, as in a metaphor for this.
Yeah.
So metaphorically speaking, it took me a long time to get the metaphor.
Brilliant. So have you got any favourite stories about other businesses outside of Us4 of what you've heard that you think, that's a great name to have come up with a good reason?
I think one of my favourites was a guy called Samuel. This is in the Black Country, I think, in the Midlands of the UK. It was Samuel and his girlfriend, Ella, and they started a sandwich business, and genuinely, they called it Salmonella. And it's popular, it works well, it's still going, and it was like, that's genius. And I love that, because you're right, so many brands and kind of businesses, that you don't kind of focus on the name so much, you focus on the person. But they've done both. They put themselves in the name, but created something funny out of the name. Yeah. It was just wonderful. So I love that. That's one of my favourites.
That's good.
Yeah, it's clever. It's clever, but it is bold, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You've really got to, here you go, you've got to take a risk. Come and eat. But I love shop names where they have got creative with,
the puns.
With the puns, or just with the shop title. It's a particular favourite of mine.
Yeah, good.
But there was a dry cleaners in Turnham Green in London, and the dry cleaners was called Turnham Clean.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
That was always a popular one. Yeah.
Yeah, it's clever.
I think one of my favourite other business names though was PowerGen, when they opened their Italian version of PowerGen, which is called PowerGen Italia, and that was I think that's a really great name when you put it together in a domain name. I think that's very. Write it down. PowerGenItalia.com, I think it was.
That took a couple of seconds there.
There we go.
Write it down to get that.
Well, you do have to be a bit careful, I think, when naming a business that it's going to work in all formats.
Yeah, therapist.co.uk can sometimes be taken the wrong way as well.
See, I've got to write it down. I love the story behind Amazon, and I think I love it because you would think that it's so well thought out, but I've just read that Jeff Bezos came up with, he wanted to call it Cadabra, but when he told his accountants or told some people, they thought he said cadavra, which is into dead body.
Yeah.
And then he just went through the dictionary and looking for names like close to the top of the alphabet, because back in '94 when he started it outside his garage, Google went on alphabetical listings. So there came Amazon, it was exotic, different, the biggest river. And so I just love the way that story evolves. And of course, now we know that's this big brand. And
I love with their logo, and it just didn't click with me for a long time. The arrow from A to Z, I think is, that I think that's a really nice, because I like that as well as business names. I love kind of the play of the FedEx logo. I'm a big fan of, with the hidden arrow in it, and it's I really enjoy the kind of thought process that must go into that.
Kate, you must have lots to say on this.
I don't know where to start. But one of my, I think it's quite interesting, like what you said, Claire, about Amazon and how they can be brave enough to change a business name when you feel like it's not working. And apparently Nike used to be called Blue Ribbon, which is nowhere near as punchy. And I'm like, Blue Ribbon, just do it.
No.
It doesn't work really, does it? So that was quite an interesting story. Going back to some of the humorous ones, I mean, there's some really, really good ones out there. And I was just doing a little bit of research in preparation for this. I thought I'd read out a few and see if you can guess what they do. So we've got Selfridges.
They sell fridges.
Yeah. They sell fridges. Yeah. It's a fridge shop. They call it Selfridges. Bruce Springsteen.
Oh, excellent. That's got to be a nice domestic cleaning company.
Oh,
yeah, absolutely. Sherlock Holmes.
No, is security, home security?
Yeah, absolutely. Jason Donovan.
Oh, that is brilliant.
And then the last one, which you won't guess, they're called Stopcocks, which I thought was just brilliant when you found out it's female plumbers.
Excellent.
That's fantastic.
But things like that is so funny. But with more serious business names, I mean, there's lots of ways. I have to work with a lot of clients on trying to come up with a business name quite often, and there's a lot of different tips and tricks you can use. So perhaps use a bit of Latin, or splicing words together, or misspelling things slightly to make them different and quirky. But it's extremely difficult to come up with a business name. I think it's one of the hardest things you will ever do. And then you'll come up with one and realise that there's no URLs available.
Yeah.
Back to the drawing board. So it's a real journey you have to go on to get the right business.
I totally agree, Kate. And that brings us nicely onto my second question, which is, what do you wish you'd have known when you started out on your business journey with regards to naming your business?
Well, I wish I'd thought of monkey pants first, but apart from that...
I take that as a real compliment, because as you guys know, and outside of this podcast, I struggle with it as a name, and I've had a couple of potential clients come to us and say, "No, it just sounds a little bit kind of childish and flippant, and and it's kind of hard to get that across." I love it. I think I'm really glad I went with it, and I just think if it had been called Pete Morgan Productions, I don't know, I really wouldn't have been happy with it.
Yeah, Pete, I love it because you're childish.
Oh, thanks very much. To be fair, I should be grateful you got my name right. Never mind anything else.
Okay. But that's said with love. This is about naming your business that reflects who you are and how you do what you do. So you're professional, but with a nice fun side to it.
Yeah. Okay. No, I'll take that.
Darren, what do you wish you'd have known starting out? Would you be Darren Langley Web Design?
Probably not. No, I'd probably be Fluffy Robot Creative. But...
It's gone.
But no, I think maybe giving it a bit more thought would have been a good idea. Maybe something a bit more longevity to it than just my name. But then again, the flip side is that it's my name's on the business, and maybe there's an element of trust to be had there, I suppose. So.
I agree.
So I just flip flop a lot on the whole name thing.
Yeah, I think I wish I'd have. It's hard because that name belongs to me, and it's been me for 13 years. I think I'd wish I'd have known just how much it would stick and how much I feel like it's part of me. So I feel like if I wanted to, I'd really struggle to let go of it because, it's like me changing my own name. That's how big it feels.
Yeah, I think it's a really strong name. I really like it. I think Metaphor really works. I think it's a belter. Yeah.
I played about a lot with, Japanese words and seeing the meaning. But then I thought I can't spend my entire business career explaining, it means this.
Absolutely.
Kate, what do you wish you'd have known?
I mean, I suppose it's a name that a lot of business names, your business will evolve quite drastically, and then you have to make a decision: do we stick with the same name or change it? We've decided to stick with ours for now. But I think back then, I wish I'd known to be a little bit more brave. I think be really brave with your choice of name. And one example of that is Virgin, which I think is like, who would want to be like, hi, I'm Virgin? I think what a adaptable name, that Richard Branson obviously came up with, and apparently they decided to call themselves that because I think their other idea was Slipped Disc, because they started off as a record company. They were called Slipped Disc, I think, or something like that. But then thought, well, if we decide to expand beyond records, how will that work? And so that was really had a lot of foresight at that, in those early days to think that way.
Yeah.
So they called themselves Virgin because they were like, well, we're completely new to business, so we'll call ourselves Virgin because we're business virgins. And I
love that.
How punchy that has been and how well that's worked for them over the years. So I think just be brave and don't shy away from things. And I think that's why we all love Monkey Pants as well. It's a brave company name, and I don't think, Pete, you're anything but boring and run of the mill. And why would you want somebody boring and run of the mill to work with you on your marketing? Otherwise you may as well not bother. So yeah.
I love that advice, Kate, because that's what I've come across in, the research for this, was a lot of these brands like Amazon, for example, and Etsy, they got their brand name with that one thought in mind: this is going to be worldwide, I can see it big, and therefore will this name carry? Mm-hmm. And a lot of business owners do the opposite, don't they? Or well, just keep it nice and small. And so that's really good advice. So what's something that you've failed at with regards to your business name, or any stories that you've heard? I think for me, the metaphor, the spelling of it, that's something that kind of, it bugs me a little bit when it comes to reading out my email that I've got to spell it out. But I also think, don't get too hung up on it. Don't get too hung up on your name. It's like, it feels like it fits you, and it fits you and the personality of the customers that you're trying to attract, then you don't need to get too hung up on it, because I bet you some of the stories that we've shared with the brand names, you didn't know where they come from. You had no idea. They're just brands that you love and use, and you've never thought about, their logo looks like this, or their brand comes from there. You don't care.
No.
I think that's the other thing, actually. Sometimes it's probably more important, the branding elements, the visual aspects perhaps, than the actual name itself, because I'm sure Kate can attest to it, but it's kind of how you put yourself out there can often be more about the aesthetics and the eye-catching elements of it, rather than necessarily just the word behind it. And
with some of them, I mean, there's some of the bigger brands, all you need is the logo and you know exactly what it is. I mean, Coca-Cola, if they just had the ribbon on the screen, you know exactly what it is that they're talking about. And I think that, so it doesn't matter if you don't like the phrase, the words Coca-Cola, you are bought in as a consumer because you absolutely recognize that.
Yeah, that's true, actually. I wonder, doing a little experiment on social channels, if you just put out your logo, of course, because, we're known in our, area, then people would recognise that logo and, don't care about the name.
Yeah, that'd be interesting too.
So talking about giving your business your own name and therefore it feeling small, can you think of any big businesses who've used their own name?
Eddie Stobart.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, might not be known outside of the UK, but, is definitely a national company.
So. Yeah.
A lot of fashion brands, obviously, are named after the designer.
Yeah.
So what have you. So, I mean, that's kind of where I put myself. I'm obviously up there with the fashion brands.
Yeah.
Me and Coco Chanel.
I can't believe that they found someone. I can't believe that Asda found someone called George from Asda that had the surname.
It's such a
he was a fashion designer. Unbelievable.
Adidas.
Yeah, that was from the name of the founder, wasn't it? And IKEA is actually the initials of the founder, IKEA. Don't ask me to tell you what the name is because I can't really pronounce it.
That's just like ABBA, isn't it? What is it with these Nordic brands who are like, just take our names and smush them together, that'll do.
E&A is the name of the town he came from. So that's where that's come from. So, and then we're having to do a bit of, research prior to recording this and asking other people's stories. There's a lot of people who use not just their names, but like a twist on the name. So, our good friend Helen, who's used her surname, but also her maiden name together. And then Hailstorm, which was a nickname for lovely Katie Hale. And so you can use your name, but do it in quirky ways and do a bit of a twist on it, or initials and that kind of thing. So it doesn't have to be, first name, last name, limited or whatever. You can do something a bit more creative with it.
Yeah, just do something fun with it. I had a tweet from Minty Creative, who said they'd named their business after their cat. And you could say their cat was their muse.
Nice. Well done.
But who has a cat called Creative? I don't know. That's
weird.
And how do they know it tasted minty? I mean, that's quite disturbing in a lot of ways. I had a tweet from Keith Rozelle, who's a sales trainer. He and his business is called Sales Marvel. And apparently, and with absolutely very little modesty in there, that was his nickname at his previous company, was Sales Marvel. So he thought, yeah, go on, I'll name the company that, because that. And I mean, I know Keith, and it's the last. He is the most humble man you would ever kind of meet, and to have him kind of pick that as a name, I thought was really interesting. And then Laura McCann got in touch, and her business, which is a travel itinerary business, and it's called Travel Brews, and apparently, as in BRUISE, and it's because when she comes back from trips away, she's always got mystery bruises, and she just thought, that's.
Specialise in 18 to 30s holidays.
yeah, I think it is.
So have a good holiday.
So the way she positions it is it's Travel Brews, where you discover places that leave their mark.
Oh, that's
good. Which I think is a really nice way of, kind of saying, I just got drunk a lot and fell over and got some bruises. I really like that.
So I was going to ask you, do you think there are some do's and don'ts around for the business owners who are listening, who are setting up in business or perhaps considering a rebrand?
I think whatever you choose, you've got to commit to it. If you and I think I was guilty of not doing that. I almost would rush the name when I kind of first went big with it in 2017, because I felt almost just kind of embarrassed by it, because it was one of those things of, we'll just call it that. What's it ever going to really matter? And here we are, several years later, it's the name of my company.
Yeah, and you have to say every time at a networking event.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think, if you're going to pick something that you are committed to. and that you are going to be proud to kind of talk about and say.
And my tip would be to double check with Urban Dictionary, because you might settle on a word and think, that's a great word. And then it turns out that the youth are using that word for something less salacious or more salacious. Urban Dictionary is your friend.
So, Kate, any do's and don'ts?
I suppose it's like naming your baby, isn't it? Check the initials, don't spell out anything rude as well. That's quite an important one. But I think just try be true to yourself, but don't overthink it too much. I mean, you could go round and round in circles with the whole company name thing. So, and I suppose the other thing as well is just be comfortable saying it. So stand in front of the mirror and say, my name is blah, 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 and I work from blah, blah, blah. And then if it sounds right, then that's the one for you. You have to be comfortable actually saying it out loud, because obviously part of business is going to network groups and being able to say it, not just, feeling like you've got to mumble it or feel embarrassed of it, or it feels like a mouthful, you have to explain it. So, I suppose that's my advice on that.
Yeah, I totally agree. That was going to be my tip, saying it out loud, because the amount of times you do have to say your business. And, to say it mumbly as well, and just to say different ways, because I don't know about you guys, but sometimes, lots of times I can go along to networking events and, what was your business name? What did you say? And even if they say it again, you still can't catch it. And, it leaves it's just confusing, isn't it? So say it loud, say it proud. Okay, so what are you taking away from our conversation today? And Darren, I'm going to come to you first. Have you kind of got any thoughts on Darren Langley web design? Does it change your idea and thoughts on it, or?
Well, it's like you just said, saying it out loud is a lot of times is kind of, and it's your own name. I have to say it twice when I introduce myself, really. So yeah. I'm still flip-flopping, but you never know. Fluffy Robot Creative could happen yet.
Darren, I'm sure we solved your company name quandary on an evening out last year when we decided to shorten it to Dangly. Did we decide to call it Dangly?
Yes!
Remember that?
I have vague recollections, yeah. I have vague recollections of registering that with Company's House, yeah.
That's brilliant.
What are you taking away from the conversation, apart from Dangly?
The name Monkey Pants is better than I give it credit for, I think, and a better business name than I've always enjoyed it and liked it, but I think I'm too concerned with what other people think about it, and it's just realizing that it's good, and it's going to be miles better than going, here's my name, like Darren just said, here's my name again. So here's my name, here's some kind of memorable word that will hopefully, stick.
Yeah, not get too hung up on the stuffy responses to it.
Yeah.
I think that's good advice, isn't it, for business owners just starting out. Be careful, like anything in your business, be careful who you share things with. If your nan doesn't give great business advice, don't go and share your business name. Kate, what are you taking away from the conversation?
I think it's sort of reinforcing my belief, really, that we're all so much more than a company name. We could all get hung up on it, but the company name means nothing if you can't back it up with great service and just being brilliant at what you do in your business. I don't think people remember you for the name. It kind of helps, but people remember you and what you do for them, and that's what's important, really. So.
Oh, that's a lovely way to end it. Wise words, Kate, as always.
I've been looking forward to this theme because I was like, I've got things to say on this. This is right up my street.
Excellent. So if you've enjoyed the podcast today, please share, subscribe and review so our fellow business owners can enjoy, be inspired, and always keep focused on the fun side of business too.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.